Welcome to BeyondBIM. Today I have the pleasure of sharing with you an interview with Associate Professor Yang Go. Associate Professor Go is the Dean's Chair at the School of Design and Environment at the National University of Singapore. Dr. Go specializes in workplace safety and health and risk management. He previously worked as a senior consultant in the oil and gas industry, as an assistant director at the Singapore Ministry of Manpower, and also as a senior lecturer at Curtin University in Western Australia. He's also the director of the Centre of Project and Facilities Management, Department of Building at NUS. And if that wasn't enough, he also simultaneously leads the Safety and Resilience Research Unit within the centre. In my interview today with him, we will delve into the topic of AI, more specifically supervised learning, BIM-based simulation, and computer vision in construction safety management. His research career has helped shape much of the research into construction safety management with machine learning modeling techniques and approaches to better help simulate construction hazards. Much of his and his colleagues' work has helped lay the groundwork for the emerging applications of modeling techniques applied within the latest commercial tools, which we're now seeing more frequently marketed for construction safety purposes. Deep learning techniques adopted in autonomous vehicles are seeing a sporadic rate of emergence in construction safety. But Yang kindly reminds us that at the heart of the problem are people, and not machines, nor the technology.
My name is Miang. My surname is Go. Quite strange for some of the Westerners. They find that it's strange to have the surname at the front, but in Singapore we have Go at the front. And the first name is typically two words in Singapore. So my name is Miang. But many of my friends from Europe and in Australia call me Yang. For me, I started off in construction safety because of my interest in outdoor safety, actually. So I started off in outdoor, doing trekking, rock climbing, etc. And safety is a very important part of outdoor activities. So I started to think about it, being a civil engineer by training. I started to think about how to improve construction safety. And in Singapore, the construction safety records are not fabulous, especially when I was still doing my Bachelor of Civil Engineering. That's where I started to think about doing a PhD or postgraduate studies in construction management and specifically on construction safety. And my PhD topic was actually using case-based reasoning, a very old form of artificial intelligence. So that's where I started to think about digitalization, the importance of data, the importance of using better technology to help us improve construction safety. Yeah.
That's interesting. Can you give us a little, for the layman who hasn't heard about case-based reasoning, what is it? What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, case-based reasoning is based on the assumption or the model of expert reasoning, where experts actually draw memories of past cases of how they dealt with certain situations, certain project or certain safety incident, and use that to compare against the current situation, and they draw a similarity. So let's say I'm looking at a new construction site I just entered. I look at the situation, I start to recall, whether I've been to a similar site and what are the safety measures that are recommended for that site. I pull up that memory of a case. So in case-based reasoning, they try to mimic that process of measuring similarity, drawing a past case that's similar, and then there's a process of adapting it to the current situation. So the process is trying to mimic an expert trying to recall something from the past.
So is this in any way related to what we know as supervised learning or machine learning?
Yes, I would say it's a form of supervised learning where the past cases would have an outcome that's predetermined by the expert. And then the machine learning algorithm will withdraw similar past cases. And whatever it predicts based on the past case can be compared with the ground truth, whatever ground truth that the person who's developing the algorithm would have to compare against the past results and measure the performance of that case-based reasoning model.
And then, of course, with that work, you then progressed into other areas relating to construction safety. And in particular, could you shed some more light on how simulation-related technologies and or real-time data collection can reduce life-threatening incidents potentially?
Yeah, I've been working on some simulation work, and also I have an ongoing project that is using computer vision, which is essentially a form of real-time machine learning approach, deep learning approach to spot hazards. I think these technologies are very promising. Simulation is something that's very doable with BIM and or this 3D or even 5D technology. I mean, there's all these possibilities, right, in terms of how to use BIM and different simulation approaches to simulate a construction project so that people can try to identify the possible issues. But within the context of simulation, I think there are many different types of simulation. In terms of just visual simulation, I think it's to help the project team to spot possible hazards beforehand, the feasibility of the different types of construction methods that they're thinking of using. So this type of simulation is really to give the project team a way to visualize the work in the future, so as to spot hazards beforehand. Another form of simulation, which may or may not be as visual, is really to develop a mathematical model of the work, tying it back to the project plan, the sequences of activities, and then try to put in some stochastic type of processes where the rate of possibility of hazards occurring and the probability of accidents happening can be built into the mathematical model. And this will facilitate some form of risk simulation, risk modeling. So there's another form of simulation that can possibly be used. I think based on what I've seen is the nearest to actual implementation in projects would be those based on visual simulation, where they simulate a project in 3D across time, so that the project team get a better sense of the different types of hazards. In terms of mathematical or statistical modeling of hazards and risks, is less common in the construction industry, but it's something that we should look into. In terms of real-time, in terms of real-time data collection, I think video data is most promising because video data is now so accessible. But of course, there's this concern about data. The workers may not, the unions might not agree to have the workers being supervised through a CCTV system all the time. So there could be some problems with such data issues about whether individuals are willing to let the videos being used for such monitoring systems. But from a technical point of view, I think video data is very promising because we can actually spot hazards automatically, whether people are near a certain danger zone, whether workers are working in a safe manner, coupled with not just video data, but also sensors. I think with all this real-time data, the future of safety management on construction sites will be very different.
So that's fascinating because what you're describing is the same technologies that we're seeing with autonomous vehicles, obviously very much dependent on analyzing risk and safety. So in this domain of work, are there also similar areas of research where people are looking into, the ethics of some of this? If we're pairing it with machinery on site, should we also be concerned about the ethical dilemmas of kind of using visual hazard safety systems? How much do they play into the actions taken on the site then?
Yeah, I think definitely ethics is always it's definitely an important topic when we are looking at the use of machine learning methods. I think from workplace safety and health angle, the concern about the individual's willingness to participate is quite different from a public domain type of situation where the person is in public. From workplace safety and health angle, the management has certain responsibility, and that places, especially when the workplace safety and health or occupational safety and health regulations are now getting even more demanding on employers about what they need to do, about whether the principal contractor or the main contractor, what are their liabilities. So from this angle, I think it is easier to convince people to adopt it. I'm not an expert on ethics, but I think it is an important topic to look into. But at the same time, balancing the real risks that our workers are facing on site, there is a better case for the adoption of such approaches on construction sites.
And you mentioned the use of sensors. So is there a push to embed sensors into the existing protective gear of the workers, or what type of sensors, apart from cameras, are you talking about as well?
Yeah, I think camera is the less intrusive from the angle of the workers, less dependent on the workers' behavior, because sensors typically will need the workers to cooperate in terms of placing the sensors on their body, make sure it's on the helmet, on their harness, which sometimes can be problematic. And many of these sensors are already being used. It can be RFID, as simple as RFID, or some of the systems that I've seen using handphones, Bluetooth technology, which is also getting common in terms of the literature. I mean, they have been investigated for I think for the past decade. There's plenty of work on those different types of sensors. In Singapore, from what I've seen, is that RFID is getting common as a way to track entry into high-risk areas, for example, confined spaces. So it's not something that is it is something that is being implemented on site, which is a good sign. Yeah.
So would that then give us the ability to have real-time or near real-time warnings for the workers?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think from the different approaches, all of them can be real-time. It can be dependent on sensors. It can be dependent on CCTV data, video data. But they all can have real-time alerts. There might be some delay in terms of transmission of some of this information, but it is really very minimal. What can happen, what I foresee in the future is that supervisors can easily get an alert if one of their workers entered certain danger area or displayed certain high-risk behavior. And there will be better collection of statistics about workers' behavior on the project sites. So with that, I think behavior-based safety will be more easily implemented. In behavior-based safety, I think worker observation is one of the key processes where workers need to be observed by trained observers. But that process of observation is frequently problematic because workers will display different behavior from their normal during their normal work processes versus when they are being observed. So this is where, besides the real-time part, the observer could now be the real-time system, the real-time deep learning system that we developed, where statistics can be accumulated across a much bigger sample size across the whole site. So I would say that it's not just the real-time part that's important. I think many a times workers, when they display very high-risk behavior, it might be too late. It is when they display on a day-to-day basis some of this potentially risky behavior, which is not as high risk as climbing over a barricade, but something that is still dangerous. If you have data about it, that's where managers can try to do something about it, prevent that habit from being built early so that accidents can be prevented. I think that's even better than a real-time detection of high-risk behavior.
So you're saying it still will rely on the humans to interpret and manage through actions what the workers are doing on site. So it's not something, we can't really deem it as a fully autonomous system because we're trying to control or manage human behavior, not machinery, to say.
Yeah, I think at the moment, from what I've seen in the literature and my own work, we still can't, I don't think it's safe to leave it purely to machines. Firstly, the construction industry being a very dynamic industry, it's not like a road where the situation is comparatively, the background and all that is more stable. For a construction site, it's always changing. Initially, it could be just rebars, and then a week down the road, it could be all concreted, and the look and feel will be very different. So it can be very challenging for a deep learning system just to pick all this up on its own. So I think, of course, it's possible as we build up more data across time, but to say that the accuracy is so high that we can just leave it to the system to make decisions, I think it's difficult. They can send alerts based on the systems and rules that we set for the system, but to just purely leave it to the system without human decision, I think at the moment is not as reliable. I don't think we should do that at this point of time.
So the other question is, why are we still so concerned about construction safety on sites? Surely the industry has progressed enough now within that domain. So what are the current statistics, for example, in Singapore related to construction safety and hazards on site? And why should we still be emphasizing on this particular area?
Yeah, Singapore has been pushing on workplace safety and health since I think there was a major push in 2004. That's when we had three major construction related accidents, all resulting in major fatalities. So since then, we have seen drastic improvement in terms of our safety performance in the construction industry and in workplace safety and health as a whole. But unfortunately, the construction industry is still the top contributor of fatalities in Singapore. And what we see is that even the number of major injuries, the construction industry is still one of the top contributors. So I would say that in Singapore, despite the improvement across the years, we are still facing a huge challenge in terms of construction safety. Just to give you a sense, I think in terms of what I've seen across the years, what we have in Singapore, we used to be ranked something like in 2010, we ranked in terms of fatality rates, we ranked 18th in the OECD countries. And now we're ranked, in 2018, we are ranked 7th. So we have made major improvements.
Wow, that's quite a leap. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big leap, and the government have put in a lot of resources, definitely. But I think the key reason why we have improved is that the industries have been playing ball. They have been very serious about workplace safety and health. But construction itself, despite the efforts, there are many structural issues. I think with the recent COVID, is shown again that we are overly reliant on foreign workers, on migrant workers. And that's where this group of workers are a vulnerable group. They are not unionized. They don't have, they are just transient. They're here for about 2 years most of the time. So this group of workers are definitely, they are not as, I would say they're not as safety conscious in general, because they are placed in such a situation where they're here really just to work, get the most out of the time. So there's some structural issues in Singapore, and that itself is a big challenge for the construction industry. Yeah.
Wow, and that's fascinating. And you're saying that a lot of the progress that's been made is because you've seen that the industry has been taking the regulations more seriously. And do you think that that the technology has played any role in that, or has it been other measures that you see are actually more important?
I think technology is an important factor, but not from a safety technology point of view, but in terms of construction technology in general. There have been reduction of cast in situ, for example. There's less reliance on scaffold. So people are very much moving towards different types of technology. Well, most of them are modular construction. I think that itself is a big improvement from the construction technology point of view, and that has a big impact on safety. That's what I believe, but there's no concrete numbers to support that. That's my personal belief. But of course, at the end, no matter what methods we use, I think the commitment towards safety is still fundamental. I can sense that many of the bigger contractors are taking safety very seriously. They have come up with different programs to improve safety culture, the softer side of things, of management. I think these are very, very important, and not just the technology aspect. Because you can have the best technology, there are always ways to go around them, unfortunately. So I think the culture part is more fundamental.
Have you had any examples of where workers go around the technology?
Well, for example, some of these machines where they have guardings to prevent direct contact with moving parts. When the machine is getting overheated, it could be a forklift, it could be a crane, it could be a rebar bending machine. When the machine is getting heated up, so to allow the machine to continue functioning, they just open it up. People just open up the guarding and find ways to allow the work to continue. So it's quite amazing what people do to get work going. Yeah.
And I guess that's very difficult to model, right? Because you're trying to model human behavior and preemptively assess the risk of, human decision making. But how difficult is it to model that actually in reality? I mean, is it realistic?
I think to model specific individuals is very difficult. So I tried with agent-based modeling. So in agent-based modeling, I think it's we're trying to model activities or model projects, but to model individual behavior, specific worker, to predict who will commit the next unsafe act is impossible. It's impossible. But to get a sense of the level of risk, I think if we have good data from past projects, we can actually build in some of this possible, the rate of commission of unsafe acts, for example. It can be based on actual data, hazard reporting, behavior observation. I think it's possible to have a broader level type of estimation of how how likely certain unsafe behavior is, right? So I think if you take it at activity or project level, it's more likely.
And so, for instance, within the consumer market, we have a lot of examples of personalized services that try and preempt where we're clicking or what we're doing online. Do you see that personalized services in the safety domain are also going to start to emerge as a result of using this type of data collection?
Yeah, I think those recommender that companies like Amazon or some of these big online platforms use to predict consumers' behavior can be adapted to construction safety. For example, operators, right? So in terms of their behavior, for example, crane operators, if we are able to understand the behavior, the typical unsafe behavior, we might recommend certain interventions like a break at a certain point of time. If you're able to study the eye movement or some of how they operate the machines and preempt that, hey, these are possible signs that, hey, they might need a break, or a small message to remind them of the importance of some safety checks if they missed it, to preempt. And that means it's based on a prediction that, hey, this operator might be on the path towards making a very dangerous move, and they recommend certain action. So that all these are foreseeable future application of AI.
No, that's fascinating because there's similar examples being developed with vehicles as well to monitor the driver's behavior. So there's a lot of synergy with what's happening in the automotive industries and the technologies that they're exploiting and how that's now starting to proliferate construction. So with that in mind, we've heard a lot of discussion about the concept of digital twins being talked about in manufacturing settings to create like a digital mirror reflection of what's happening within an assembly line. Do you foresee that something like this could be a possibility, at least in the prefabrication domain? And do you think we're anywhere closer to getting to a digital twin, or is this just some kind of marketing jargon that you don't really see that's going to be a reality anytime soon on a construction site?
Well, in Singapore, the government have been pushing for digital twin or BIM very aggressively. I would say that there's some successes, but it's definitely not near what we have seen in the manufacturing industry of the way that they use the term digital twin. I would say that it is a vision that we all should have for the construction industry, but there are many challenges that our industry face, which is quite different from the manufacturing industry. I would just say that it is something that is possible, something that we should all push towards, so as to improve safety, so as to improve productivity, so as to improve the industry as a whole. But there's a wide range of challenges that we need to tackle. And again, it's related to the structure of our industry. Because we are so fragmented, we are reliant many a times. Singapore is not the only one, but I think many countries are reliant on transient workers, migrant workers, or seasonal or simply just transient. And that all this are part of the problems. People might not be as willing to invest in competencies of workers, of employees, and in terms of the contractors, they might not be as willing to invest in some of the machineries, in terms of different types of technologies. So there are many structural issues that we need to deal with. I'll just say that it's a vision that we must push for, but there are plenty of challenges.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And so there is, as you say, there is a heavy push from governments around the world to create or manifest that vision in practice. But as you rightly said, construction industry is still very different from a manufacturing setting as what we know of. So um, in regards to the current changes in the way that everybody is working, are you seeing in Singapore other new measures that have been taken into account on the construction sites given the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, the consultants are definitely working from home. Most of them, the consultants are now moving towards that. They're forced to it because of the situation. So perhaps one of the upside of this COVID pandemic is that many industries, including construction industries, are forced to adopt more digital technologies, and that is perhaps one of the few upside of this very tragic episode. So I would say that the contractors are struggling to cope in terms of the actual work on site. There's a move towards digitalizing many of their processes, but in the short run, I think most companies, from what I've seen, are just trying to survive. It's a very tough time for the industry. Next week in Singapore, some of them from June onwards, some of them can start work, but only for critical projects. So many of them have stopped work for months. By the time they start work, could be stoppage of 3 months of work.
So construction sites have been closed effectively in Singapore.
Yes, in Singapore, all construction sites have stopped, and most of many of the workers, many of the dormitories that the foreign workers are staying in, had also been locked down. So there's a manpower shortage at the moment. For them, many of them are considering the use of technology. For contractors, many of them are exploring the use of technology to help them to continue with work when the government allow them to do so. There will be requirements for safe distancing, the tracking of workers are working on certain zone so that there's less mingling between different subcontractors. So all this is very difficult to implement through manual supervision. Some of them are exploring ways of using sensors to ensure safe distancing. Some of them are exploring other approaches. So I would say that this pandemic had forced many companies to start exploring ways to tap onto technologies to help them survive.
Yeah, that seems to be the common consensus. So, but also, as we know, construction companies are very financially strained given the already tight profit margins and profitability. So, do you think that because of that, you might see more changes in the way that these businesses operate, whereby they might have to partner up with companies outside of their domain expertise to fund some of that innovation? Or do you think that the businesses as a whole will have to reconsider how they operate?
Definitely, I think this is survival of the fittest, and the people, the companies that are able to adapt to this major challenge will be the survivors. I'm sure there'll be companies that will just simply give up and go bankrupt or just end their business. This is, in a way, a test of the ability to adapt, I would say. So many of them, the Singapore's Contractors Association Limited, have been working with the Singapore government. In Singapore, the government has amazingly strong reserves. As you can see from this episode, the amount of reserve is an unknown even to citizens. And the way that they're throwing out the fourth package of trying to save businesses is pretty amazing. They have already spent about billions of dollars. I think, if I'm not wrong, it's about 100 billion Singapore dollars to save. Yeah, that's a lot of money for a small country like Singapore. So the Contractors Association have been working with the government very closely. The government had committed to help the contractors to the construction industry because it is one of the worst hit industries, because we're so reliant on migrant workers and there are so many migrant workers being infected. So what I see is that many of them are really dependent on the government now. I'm not sure how many of them will be able to get partners from outside the industry to help out. So the government plays a big role in this pandemic to make sure that our industry continues to survive. That's the situation in Singapore now.
Okay. And given that you're continuing research within the same domain, so for any of those aspiring researchers that are wanting to make a change within the construction industry or in that domain, what advice would you give them, given that you've had this experience in conducting research and you've worked within industry? So can you give us some examples of what advice you'd give to those researchers who want to see a change?
Well, from my angle, I think what I've learned in my collaboration with the industry is that the ability to get funding is critical. The industry is very practical. They are more concerned with the project that is running. So for us as researchers to work with them, I think we must be able to get funding from some reliable source so as to fund our dreams for the industry, our vision of what would help the industry. I think at the end, the funding is critical. If we can't get funding to fund many of these projects, it's very difficult to continue our collaboration with the industry. And at least in this part of the world, many of the companies are not willing to fund research. So that's where if you can find charitable organizations, you can find funding from government, open calls for innovation. So that ability to work with different organizations to get funding to help the industry to improve, I think is a very fundamental, very, very fundamental and important skill to have. That's one. The other part is the ability to convince the companies that it is useful. I think people on the ground are very practical. They have no time for you to publish papers for the sake of a career, to write something about some fanciful technology that's not going to work. People are very practical. So It's up to us about our creativity to find the balance between what they need, what we need, and what the grantors need. So that ability to juggle the differences in needs, in the different KPIs, key performance indicators of different parties, I think that is actually something that you can't learn from books. You can't get them from any of the courses I take from universities. But many of the experienced professors will be very good mentors for such things. I think talking to experienced, successful researchers for how they gain support from the industry, from the government, from the unions or whoever are willing to pump in the resources to fund research. I think that is really, really critical.
Thank you for tuning in to listen to BeyondBIM podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more from our latest episodes, then you can visit BeyondBIM, which is available on SoundCloud and iTunes and all the other major podcast providers.